So the federal judge says all these kids have to go back to their families. Here's the issue. There's no way to know where they are. There's no game plan to do it. They're like, great, 14 days. How's that going to happen?
It's not going to happen. So we have the meeting of malevolence, cruelty, with the abject incompetence that we've seen on display in places like Puerto Rico, where thousands of people are dead who otherwise would have been alive if there was a modicum of competence in this administration, which, of course, there's not.
Okay, then what's the Republican Party line out of this? When the federal judge says this is a chaotic circumstance of the government's own making, how does Trump get out from under that?
I think that this is Donald Trump's Katrina, and it's even worse because it's a man-made...
Except Puerto Rico was already Katrina.
Well, yeah, exactly. But for him, he managed to get away with, thousands of people dying because of his administration's incompetence. These images are not going away, and they're percolating. They are permeating beyond right-wing media. The silos that normally constrain our political parties in this country, those images are getting out. People all over the country are hearing about tender-age children, their propaganda term for it, for young children. They're hearing about older children in these shelters changing the diapers of younger babies.
Okay, so Phil, how is the White House responding to this? Because even if they want to put the blame on the parents of these children for bringing them here, now that the federal judge says this is chaos created by your own doing, fiscal conservatives, even if they don't care about the migrant children, have to worry about the cost of all this nonsense.
Well, it is created by the administration's own doing, and the line from the president has been the blame, 100% of the blame should fall on Congress, and yet he's had very conflicting messages to Congress, giving them different directives about what they should do. It was only 5 days ago, last Friday, that President Trump said, don't pass any legislation on immigration, wait until after the midterm elections. Then this morning we saw in all caps him tweet out a message to House Republicans, Senate Republicans too, to pass this broader immigration bill, which does not seem likely to pass. So it's complete chaos in terms of figuring out how to implement these policies and what the policies actually even are. And the agencies don't know how to manage this situation.
But at the same time, you've got the Supreme Court ruling holding up the president's third version of his travel ban. Is the White House going to try to push this migrant children situation aside and go forward and feel more emboldened on their hard line on immigration, since we know what just happened with the Supreme Court and the travel ban?
They could. It's a little bit unclear how these two are gonna merge here in the days to come. But clearly, the White House feels some vindication after this court ruling with the travel ban, and what it does is affirms for the president that he has the power to set a lot of these policies regarding who can enter the country. And I think he's going to try to find ways to exercise that power in the weeks and months ahead. Perhaps considering other countries that should be added to that ban. I don't know, but clearly he's exercised about this and feels empowered, newly empowered to act.
Steve, if anyone should feel vindicated, it should be President Trump's attorneys, who took his original travel ban and reworked it 17 ways till Sunday until this thing got passed by the Supreme Court. But President Trump takes it as a huge win. Don Jr. out there tweeting up a storm. Does this embolden the president? Probably.
Look, at the end of the day, this Muslim ban, and that's what it was, and he clearly stated it. Well, there's a couple of countries on the list that are non-Muslim countries on it, and he doesn't like the watered-down third version, according to reports from inside the White House. But the intent was clear. It was discriminatory. It imposed a religious test on immigration, fundamentally un-American. And so we saw two things. We saw an erosion of civil liberties, right, in the name of security, which is always the case. But most importantly, the national security damage done by this decision, the signal that it sends to the Muslim world, is that the United States is your enemy. This was what bin Laden sought to achieve, a global war between Muslims and the West, the great confrontation, a billion Muslims. This empowers extremists. It isolates moderate Muslims. And so the president may revel in this, but our country is weaker, the world is more dangerous, and fundamental American values have been undermined.
Okay, then let's go back to September 11th, because from the beginning, the country where the most 9/11 hijackers came from
Saudi Arabia.
was Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, follow the money, is not on the list. But if you remember, it was one of President Trump and his sword dance's favorite trips this past year.
Well, and this is Saudi Arabia is supposedly the linchpin of our strategy to bring peace to the Middle East. And I feel like that has been, you can't tell where the national interest is for the Trump administration and the financial interest of the Trump family and the Kushner family. And it's incredibly disturbing. Another addition on that list that really is disturbing is Yemen. Right now, about 8 million people are on the verge of starvation. 8 million people because of our immoral foreign policy in cahoots with Saudi Arabia and Yemen. We are complicit in that, and this is only furthering the death and devastation.
And let's not miss the total, utter, absolute corruption of this administration. Does anybody think it is without coincidence that there are no Trump hotel properties in any of the countries on the list? And the countries that would be security threats, if you were to look at, these are countries that have produced terrorists who have attacked America, including Saudi Arabia, where 15 of the 19 hijackers on 9/11 came from. And more importantly, Saudi Arabia has been the chief funder and advocate of the export of Wahhabism, which has radicalized moderate strains of Islam all over the world. So when Donald Trump stands in the middle of the sword dance in Saudi Arabia and doesn't talk about either the human rights violations of that country, doesn't talk about their role in funding extremism and terrorism, what it does is render all of this into the nonsensical joke that in reality it is. This is all shtick. He goes to North Korea. He says peace is at hand. But what do we know now from satellite imagery yesterday? The North Koreans are busy upgrading their nuclear weapons and ballistic missile capabilities as we speak. This is another reality show episode, completely detached from reality, part of a political strategy.
That's working.
Well, listen, it's not working. He has 40, 41, 42% support in the country. There are more people opposed to him that are for him. That has always been the case. But don't underestimate what he's doing, what he's attempting to do. He uses mass rallies to lie and create fervor in a base by scapegoating minority populations and blaming them for all the ills in the world.
It's more than just his base. You've got centrist, wealthy people who are willing to look the other way and take his lies for fact because it works for their bank accounts, because they hear about far left candidates winning the primaries and they worry, what's going to happen to my tax dollars? I'm going to believe Trump's lies because it's convenient for me.
Once upon a time in American politics, it was a business of persuasion. You would try to persuade people that your ideas were slightly better than the other side. It has become a game of incitement. And what Trump is doing is radicalizing American politics. And he is a beneficiary the more radical politics becomes. When it becomes a game of incitement between a far left who says everybody's going to have a government job, everybody's going to have daycare, everybody's going to have retirement, free school, free high school, free college education, as we careen towards $30 trillion in debt. When we have dishonest progressivism, right, and we have dishonest Trumpism, an alienated middle that surrenders. They break their will to fight back. They become disenfranchised and hopeless about the idea that free market capitalism or liberal democracy can prevail in a radical era. That is the danger.
Well, this is the moment for the center to rise. Phil, then before we go, this immigration bill, anything going to happen there? We sit here all day long and talk about how urgent it is, but it almost seems laughable today.
Yeah, it seems unlikely that this broader immigration bill is going to pass. That's been the outlook for several days now, although the White House, on paper at least, is behind it. The more likely scenario is that a narrower fix that would deal specifically with the Flores settlement issue, which deals with the timing of how long children can be detained with their parents. That's likely to potentially get through the Congress before the end of this week, and the White House would get behind that, assuming this broader bill fails as expected.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.